Okay, we're recording. All right, I'm here today with Professor Kathy Foltz, who is in the Molecular, Cellular, and Developmental Biology Department at UCSB and is one of our PIs for the MARC program. So I wanted to ask Kathy a few questions and ask for some advice for students who are thinking about applying for the MARC program. So Kathy, why should students consider applying for the MARC program?
Yeah, I think any kind of structured program, but particularly the MARC program, allows students to have kind of a structure to their research experience, right? If you want research experience, which you kind of need to help you figure out whether or not you should go to graduate school, right? Or if you're really in, the area that you think your interests are leading you, you need that research experience. And a program like the MARC gives you not only that like insider look of what it's like to do research, but you have this kind of support system around you. You have other scholars, you have more senior scholars who can help the younger scholars. And you have professional development aspects to the program that you wouldn't get if you were simply just working in a lab, which often is really all students want. But I think the hidden advantage of a program like MARC is that support system, of which Sammy is a big part of, right? So I think having that more organized approach to the research experience where you're getting the professional experience is really a big, big advantage. And you have the connection then to the national group of MARC scholars. And it's kind of an identifier that you applied to a pretty competitive program and were accepted. And you have these links now to other universities and other programs.
So I think I totally agree with everything you said, and it sounds like, in your opinion, the MARC is kind of a comprehensive way to get really good research training as well as professional development. All of those things would be beneficial to you as you kind of move forward
Yeah,
in your career.
absolutely. And I think the other advantage that the MARC offers, and there's other programs too, like UC Leeds, for example, but I think the opportunity to go for a summer and research somewhere else is huge, right? Because that gives you a sense of what it's like to go outside of your UCSB experience and see, maybe what it's like on another UC campus or on an East Coast campus. Great insight in an experience like that. Yeah.
So students are often, it doesn't take a lot for them to be like, okay, this sounds like a good program.
Yeah.
But people are always worried about, you know, it's competitive,
Yeah.
and how to feel like they can actually have a shot. So one of the
Hmm.
things that I hear a lot about is students, we ask students to apply for this during their sophomore year, and a lot of them are worried about, GPAs,
Hmm.
especially for students who are in the pre-majors and maybe are struggling a little bit with some of the classes. Can you talk a little bit about how the MARC program looks at GPAs or how we think about GPAs?
Yeah, it's definitely something I hear a lot from students as well. And I think in the second year, of course, you're finishing up all those prereq courses, which are huge, and it feels really competitive. And you feel like, oh, I wish my GPA was a little bit higher. But, I think the thing to remember is that there is a comprehensive review process where the the people who are looking at applicants are thinking about distance traveled. What sorts of things have you really done as a student to get to the point where you're at? And that oftentimes grades are not the best predictor of success in research. It's more about passion and curiosity and why you might want the research experience. So I always encourage students to apply um, without worrying too much about that GPA. I mean, we always want to make sure that your academics are going to be good enough, right? So that you are eligible for programs down the road, right? Like graduate school. But that doesn't mean a 4 point. And I think a lot of times students look at a program like this and think, oh, if I don't have a 3.9 or a 3.95, there's no way. But that's actually not true. It's more about, your motivation for wanting to do the program and sort of your trajectory as opposed to, that actual, like, what is my GPA at the moment. So I think, a student should apply if you have the interest and desire to pursue research. I think it's worth applying. And even if you don't get it, like let's say that, for whatever reason, the experience of applying is awesome because putting together the application packet really gives you a chance to self-reflect. It gives you a chance to talk to faculty and request letters of recommendation, which is always scary, but you can do it. And it also gives you a chance to kind of, just collect your thoughts and put something together that can be used for other kinds of applications as well. So it's definitely worth it. And thinking about why you want research experience is really, really important, and how you're going to fit that in time wise to, the other things you might want to pursue. So I always encourage students to do it. And, it's a joke amongst researchers, right, where we get a lot of rejections on applications, right? I'm used to being told no, but if I don't apply, the chance of getting funding or some other thing that I'm trying to get is zero, right? So if you apply, it's always going to be a little bit higher than zero, so it's worth it. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, that's always that's something after you take statistics, you're like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
the probability is greater than zero, and
It's
that's
gone way
significant.
up,
Yeah,
like just by applying. But I
that's
do think the
significant.
value of, that self-reflection and putting something together, just where you kind of see where you're at, like, oh, maybe I need to do this, and, in order to feel more competitive. But, that word competitive, we use it a lot, but often I find that in programs like this, you're really competing against yourself, right? Like
Hmm.
you're trying to improve. And it's not so much comparing you to another applicant, but sort of where you are on the path that you see yourself trying to get to a career goal, or some other goal. So I think applying is definitely worth it.
So just at the end of that, you were talking about it being more of a competition with yourself. And I know that a lot of people, especially, winter quarter, sophomore year, bio major, pre-bio major,
Yeah,
you're not
boy.
feeling very confident in your skill set
Mm-mm.
or your abilities. So what advice do you have for students who are feeling like there's no way I'm qualified for this?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I realized that, speaking to second year students, particularly in the pre-bio major, where you feel like you've just gone through the ringer of a bunch of weeder courses, right? That's how I hear students saying that's how they feel. I think it's really important to remember that at this stage in your career, no one really expects you to have, that kind of practical experience in a research lab, right? Like it would be sort of remarkable to have a student who already had, tons of actual practical experience in a lab, and maybe even was pitching an idea for a project, right? That's really unusual. I mean, the most research programs, including just individual faculty members programs, are really looking more for the curiosity and the passion and the work ethic, as opposed to that kind of practical experience. The program is designed to give you the practical experience. So don't put yourself out of the running by thinking, oh, there is no way, I don't even know what research is. How can I apply for a research program like the MARC? Well, the MARC is there to show you what research is. It's not there because you already know what it is and now you're going to be the best applicant for it. So it's designed to help you understand what research is, and to help you get further along in a research path. So definitely don't think you have to already have all of that before you even apply. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important for students to remember that the program is designed and it recruits a certain, you at a certain level, right? So we know we're talking to second years who are in their, fourth, fifth quarter at UCSB and are
Yeah.
in their pre-majors, and we don't have any requirements for prior research. But I think I just want to underline what Kathy was saying, like we are looking for people who are curious, who are interested, who have a good work ethic. And you could show that in a variety of different ways. It doesn't have to be just reflected by your grades. It can be reflected by the letters that you get from previous supervisors or mentors or
Mhm.
instructors. And so on that note, Kathy, I just wanted
Yeah.
to, you mentioned earlier, and this is something students are often worried about, is how do you approach faculty to ask for a letter of recommendation? Can you give some advice on how to ask for a letter of recommendation, maybe from the perspective of, your instructor at UCSB, but then also just, what's the point of the letter of recommendation, and who who might you be thinking of to ask for that letter?
Yeah, that I think this is something that really stresses students out because I've had many students, come to my office hours and I know they're there because they want to ask me for a letter, and I purposefully make them ask. I don't make it easy for them because it is something you have to learn. I try to ease them into the asking, but I can often tell how stressful it is. And I think the thing to remember is that you want letters from someone who can actually talk about you as a person, not just where you ranked in their class. So a lot of times students mistakenly think, oh, I'm going to look at my transcript and the classes where I think I got the best grade, I'm going to ask for that letter. Well, if you never went to office hours and that faculty member or that TA doesn't know you, that's not really going to be that useful a letter, because the only thing they're going to be able to say is, oh, this person took my class in this quarter. They ranked, X out of X and got an A. And here's what the class was about and what they had to do to get an A. Bleh, right? That
Mhm.
doesn't really say that much more than the transcript itself. So context, right? The best letters that I've written are letters for students who maybe struggled a little bit at the beginning of my class and showed that they really wanted to learn and they were more focused on learning than the grade, and they engaged with me and maybe the TAs as well, and worked really hard, right? And responded to feedback and connected with us and talked about why they were applying to a program, and give me some context, like why are you bothering to apply, and I can learn a little bit about you, and then in my letter I can tell a story,
Mhm.
right, about that person as opposed to the rank, which doesn't really matter at all. And so I think trying to engage with faculty and your TAs is super important. It is hard in those big lower division classes, but it's doable. And faculty like to talk to students about their career trajectories for the most part. I can't speak for every faculty member, but for the most part, happy to talk about our own stories. I mean, I think students mistakenly think that we came out of the womb planning to be a professor, which is not true. Um, and so you learn about, oh, how did you get here? You talk to your TAs, how did you decide to go to grad school? Do you like it? Are you glad you're in grad school, right?
Mhm.
Simple questions. So being willing to show who you are as a person, I think, is super helpful. And it means that you need to start cultivating those mentoring relationships. And it can be scary, but you can do it. And I always encourage students to just talk to people. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so important to do that while you're at UCSB, and it's challenging, but to start developing relationships with your instructors, the faculty, and the TAs,
Hmm.
because they can really help you. And it's not just about, making friends you can get a letter, but really, getting setting up a relationship so they can support you in the various ways, like, suggesting opportunities for you,
Hmm.
or helping you get an introduction somewhere. All of those things are possible when you start making those connections. And just, in case anybody's watching this and they're freaking out because they don't feel like they can build this type of relationship in time to get a letter for the MARC program, just so you know, we're really flexible with who can write your letters. So check out our FAQs on the MARC website. But really, it, anybody who's been an instructor or a manager or a supervisor, whether that be during college, community college, the later stages of high school, your job, so or volunteer position, any of those people. And really, like Kathy was saying, it's about who's worked with you, who knows how you operate, who can really communicate on those things that we're talking about, like your curiosity, your perseverance, things like that. And it doesn't have to be, a science teacher,
Right.
or an engineering teacher. So, yeah. Well, thank you, Kathy. That was
Sure.
awesome. I really
Yeah.
appreciate you talking to students.
Yeah, thank you. And I hope that any student who's watching this, I hope you apply to this and other programs as well. Take advantage of those opportunities.